Good day, everyone. We are the group 11, and we will be discussing the environment and population. I am Giselle Jean Marie G. Macwa. My group mates are Daniel Jean and Sabiliano Julie Jean. Instead of controlling the environment for the benefit of the population, perhaps we should control the population to ensure the survival of our environment. By David Attenborough. Learning objectives. Illustrate the collective action problem facing the international community by focusing on one global environmental issue. Evaluate the roadblocks to achieving a successful international agreement to address the problem of global warming. Describe three ways in which we need to for natural resources can create international conflict. Explain the demographic transition and why some states are vulnerable to rapid population. Interdependence and the environment. Many living things interact with other organisms in their environment. In fact, they may need other organisms to survive. This is known as interdependence. Other interaction between living things include a symbiotic relationship and competition for resources. Humans needs nature we can create a civilization from it. The major theme for this topic is sustainable development. It refers to the economic growth that does not deplete resources and destroy ecosystems so quickly that the basis of that economic growth is itself undermined. Managing the environment. Most global environmental problems are the involved collective goods for the state and people in the world. First is in the atmosphere. It includes global warming and ozone depletion. The atmosphere. Preserving the health of the Earth's atmosphere is a benefit that affects people throughout the world without regard for their own state's contribution to the problem or its solution. The two problems of the atmosphere have become major international issues, for the global warming and the depletion of the ozone layer. Global climate change or global warming is a long-term rise in the average world temperature. Growing and compelling evidence shows that global warming is a real problem. That is that it is caused by the emission of carbon dioxide and other gases, and that it will get much worse in the future. The issue of the global warming has risen high on the political agenda in the past decade because of massive melts of Arctic ice, freakish weather, and devastating hurricanes. Over the coming decades, according to most estimates, global temperature may be raised by between 3 and 10 degrees Fahrenheit if nothing is done. Possibly within a few decades, the polar ice caps will begin to melt and cause the sea level to rise by as much as a few feet. Studied in 2012 confirmed that the warming trend is accelerating faster than what had been seen as worst case scenario. The 9 of the 10 warmest years on record have happened since 2000, with 2014 as the warmest year ever recorded. Global warming could flood many coastal cities and devastate low-lying areas such as the heavily populated coastal areas of Bangladesh and China. Urgent calls for action to avert global warming come from island states in the Pacific that will likely disappear this country. Indeed, reflecting an all too realistic lack of faith in the international action, the low-lying state of the Maldives created a fund to buy land in another country to move on its 300,000 residents as its territory disappear. Global climate change has begun to alter weather patterns in many regions, causing drought, floods, freeze, and widespread disruption of natural ecosystem. It is also possible that climate changes could benefit some regions and make agriculture more productive. Melting of polar ice is opening new shipping routes north of Canada and Russia that could potentially cut weeks of the transit time from Northern Europe to America or to Asia. a huge savings for global businesses. Furthermore, the Arctic seas hold large deposits of oil and gas, which will become commercially accessible as the ice melts. Second, ozone depletion. Ozone depletion is a second major atmospheric problem negotiated by the world's government. Ozone high in the atmosphere screens out harmful ultraviolet rays from the sun. Certain chemicals expelled by industrial economies float to the top of the atmosphere and interact with ozone in a way that breaks it down. The chief culprits are CFCs, until recently widely used in refrigeration and in aerosol sprays. Unfortunately, ozone produced by burning fossil fuels does not replace the high level ozone but only pollutes the lower atmosphere. As the ozone layer thins, more ultraviolet radiation reaches the Earth's surface. Over Antarctica, a seasonal hole in the ozone grew larger year by year. If if ozone level kept rising, the increased radiation cost eventually kill off vegetation, reduce agricultural yields, and disrupt ecosystem. Clearly, this was another collective goods problems in that one state could benefit by allowing the use of CFCs in its economy, provided that most of other states prohibited their use. But the cost of replacing CFCs were much lower than the cost of addressing global warming. CFCs should be replaced with other chemical and relatively modest cost. Furthermore, the consequences of ozone depletion were both better understood and more immediate than those of global warming. Third, forest and oceans includes rainforest and the oceans. Ay, second is biodiversity. Biodiversity refers to the tremendous diversity of plant and animal species making up the Earth's global, regional, and local ecosystems. Because of human destruction, the ecosystem, large numbers of species are already extinct. Extinction results from overhunting, overfishing, and introducing non-active species that crowd out previous inhabitants. But the most important cost is loss of habitat. The destruction of the rainforest, pollution of lakes and streams, and loss of agricultural land to urban sprawl. Because ecosystems are based on complex interrelationships among species. The extinction of a few species can cause deeper changes in the environment. For example, the loss of native microorganisms can lead to chronic pollution of rivers or to the transformation of arable land into deserts. Third is forests and oceans. Two types of habitat, tropical rainforest and oceans, are especially important to biodiversity and atmosphere. Both are also reservoirs of commercially profitable resources such as fish and woods. They differ in that forests are located almost entirely within state territory, whereas oceans are largely beyond any state territory in the global commons. Rainforest, as many as a half of the world's species lives in a rainforest which replenish oxygen and reduce carbon dioxide at the atmosphere, slowing down global warming. Rainforests that thus benefit all the world's states. They are collective goods. International bargaining on the preservation of rainforest has made considerable progress, probably because most rainforests belong to a few states. These few states have the power to speed up or slow down the destruction of forests. and international bargaining among the two agreements to shift cost from those few states onto the broader group of states benefiting the rainforest. Although some rich states, including the United States, have large forests, most of the largest rainforests are the poor states such as Brazil, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Madagascar. Such states can benefit economically from exploiting the forest, freely cutting lumber, clearing land for agriculture and mining. Until recently, leaders of rich states have been most interested in encouraging maximum economic growth in poor states so that the foreign debts could be paid with little regard for the environment damage. Oceans. The oceans, covering 70% of the Earth's surface, are, are a key to regulating climate change and preserving biodiversity. Oceans, like forests, are attractive targets for short-term economic uses that cause long-term environmental damage, such as include overfishing, dumping toxic and nuclear waste and other garbages, and long distance oil shipments with their recurrent spills. Unlike rainforest, oceans belong to no state but are a global commons. Uh, this makes the collective goods problems more difficult because no authority exists to enforce regulation. Preserving the ocean depends on the cooperation of the more than 100 states and thousands of non-state actors. One solution states have pursued involves enclosing more of the ocean territorial waters have expanded to hundreds of miles of coast. Uh, this solution has been pursued in the context of larger multilateral negotiations of the ocean management. Lastly, the pollution. Pollution generally creates a collective good problems, but one that is not often global scale. Pollution is more often regional and bilateral issue, with some exceptions such as dumping at sea. The effects of population are limited to the state where it occurs and its close neighbors. U.S. industrial smokestack emissions cause acid rain in Canada but do not directly affect distant states. China, terribly, air pollution kills nearly 500,000 Chinese a year, but few foreigners. Even when population crosses state borders, it often has its strongest effect closest to the source. This localized effect makes more somewhat less interactable collective goods problem because of polluting can state seldom free ride and few actors are involved. In several regions, notably Western and Eastern Europe and the Middle East states are closely packed in the same air, river, or sea basins. In such situation, pollution controls must often to be negotiated multilaterally. Uh, Water pollution often crosses borders as well, especially because industrial pollution, human sewage, and agricultural fertilizer and pesticides all tend to run into rivers and seas. For instance, in 2005, a huge chemical spill in northern China polluted a river that flows into Russia. Long-standing regional agencies that regulate shipping on heavily used European rivers now also deal with pollution.
Natural resources. The three ways in which need for natural resources can be create international conflict. First, and world energy. Second, minerals. Third, water disputes. First, world energy. World energy supply and consumption is a global production and preparation of fuel, generation of electricity, energy transport, and energy consumption. Ubang energy nga ginagamit isip electricity gagikan sa hydroelectric dam o nuclear power plants. Pero kadaghanan jud ani nagikan sa pagsunog og fossil fuel sa mga planta nga nagagama og kuryente. Ikaduha, minerals. Energy minerals include coal, oil, natural gas, and uranium. Metal such as iron is ginagamit siya for scars or for frame of buildings. Copper is used for electrical wiring, lithium in rechargeable batteries, and aluminum is aircraft and to make drinks can. In third, water dispose. Water dispose is a limited resources. Water conflict occur because the demand for water resources and potable water can exceed supply, or because control over access and allocating of water may be disputed, or because water management institutions are weak or missing. In addition to energy and minerals, states need water. This need increase as a society industrialize, it is intensifies agriculture, and its population grow.
Hello, ma'am. Good evening. My topic is all about population. Population. So, global population reached a record high today, as it does every day. World population 7 billion in 2016 is growing by 8 billion million rather each year. Forecasting future population is easy in some respects, barring a nuclear war or an environmental catastrophe. Today's children will grow up and have children of their own. For the coming 20 to 30 years, world population growth will be driven rather mechanistically by the large number of children in today's populations in the global south. The projected world population in 2030 will be 8 to 9 billion people, and there is little anyone can do to change that projection. Of the increase in population in that period, 96% will be in the global south. Currently, half the world's population growth occurs in just 6 countries: India, China, Pakistan, Nigeria, Bangladesh, and Indonesia. Among the world's poorest countries will see population shrink in that period. Forecasting beyond 25 years is difficult. When today's children grow up, the number of children they bear will be affected by their incomes because of the demographic transition discussed shortly. And yes, many people will starve if they don't have enough income or resource of income. So, to the extent that developing countries accumulate wealth, a subject taken up in chapter 13, their population will grow more slowly. A second factor affecting the rate of population growth will be government policies regarding women's rights and birth control. Because of these two uncertainties, projections beyond a few decades have range of uncertainty. By 2050, world population could be 9 billion, with a final leveling out around 10 billion in the next 100 years. New data in 2002 showed that higher women's status and literacy are reducing population growth more than expected in large, poor countries. The actions of states and IOS now will determine the Earth's population in 200 years. Now, 200 years ago, the British writer Thomas Malthus warned that population tends to increase faster than food supply. and predicted that population growth would limit itself through famine and disease. Today, experts and officials who warned against world overpopulation are sometimes called Malthusian. Critics of this view point out that technology has kept pace with population in the past, allowing more food and other resources to be extracted from the environment even as population keeps growing. So, why do we need to monitor the population that we have today? So dapat jud nato na siya i-monitor because of maapektuhan ang ato ang economy, no? So sa ubang country there are lots of people na daghan sila ka anak pero wala sila tarong na income, which is mas difficult sa ila because of daghan sila mga anak pero wala sila tarong income. Ang uban is dako siya impact because ang uban dili na magagampanan, and then ang uban is mapabayaan na lang ang ilang anak, so it leads to death. So dapat yun siya nga naagid siya yung limitation. So that is my report about the population. Thank you.